Tonight, when the sun goes down, you're going to flip a switch. Light floods the room. You don't even think about it. But for 99.9% of human history, that switch didn't exist. When the sun went down, the world went dark. Actually dark. Not close the curtains dark. Not turn your phone brightness down dark. The kind of dark where you genuinely cannot see your own hand in front of your face. And somewhere in that darkness, your ancestors were still awake. So what exactly were they doing? Before we get to what they did, we need to talk about the one thing that made any of it possible. Fire. Around 400,000 years ago, possibly even earlier, ancient humans gained real control over fire. Not just stumbling across a burning tree and carrying embers home. Deliberately starting it, managing it, keeping it alive through the night. And this changed everything. Before fire, humans were basically forced to stop at sunset, same as every other primate. Monkeys and apes have terrible night vision, and so do we. Every major predator that hunted early humans was nocturnal. Lions, leopards, hyenas, all hunting in the dark. Without fire, the night was just a countdown to something trying to kill you. Fire broke that completely. It scared predators away. It provided warmth in climates that would have been deadly at night without it. It gave light. And it did something nobody expected. It gave humans extra hours. Researchers estimate that controlled fire added up to 4 hours to the usable human day. 4 hours that didn't exist before. 4 hours that had to be filled with something. And here's what's fascinating about those 4 hours. You couldn't use them for hunting. Too dark. You couldn't gather plants. Too dangerous. The night, for the first time in human history, was time that existed specifically and almost exclusively for one thing: each other. Anthropologist Polly Wiessner spent 40 years studying the Ju/Hoan Bushmen of Botswana and Namibia, one of the most studied hunter-gatherer groups on Earth. She documented their conversations during the day and at night separately. The difference was dramatic. Daytime conversations were 75% practical. Work, tasks, complaints, arguments about food and resources. Nighttime conversations around the fire. Almost entirely something else. Stories, songs, dancing, spiritual experiences, shared emotions, healers going into trances, jokes, gossip about people in distant groups. Wiessner described it like this: at night, people let go. The agendas of the day dropped. Small children fell asleep in the laps of family members. Even conflicts that had happened during the day got resolved. The fire mellowed people out in a way that daytime never did. And this wasn't just one group. Every hunter-gatherer culture studied across the world shows the same pattern at night. The fire was the center. The gathering was automatic, and the conversation shifted completely from survival talk to something deeper. Scientists now believe this is actually where human culture was born. Not in the daylight hours of hunting and gathering, but in those firelit hours at night, when people had nothing to do except be human together. Here's something most people don't think about. Ancient humans didn't just have fire. On clear nights, they had the moon. And the moon changed everything about what happened at night. A 2021 study from the University of Washington tracked sleep patterns in indigenous Toba communities in Argentina, groups who had lived as hunter-gatherers until very recently, alongside college students in Seattle. What they found was wild. Both groups, whether living without electricity in rural Argentina or drowning in artificial light in a major U.S. city, showed the exact same pattern. In the nights leading up to a full moon, people went to sleep later and slept for less time. On average, 46 to 58 minutes less sleep per night around the full moon. The researchers concluded that humans still carry an ancient biological response to moonlight that evolved long before electricity existed. On full moon nights, ancient humans stayed up later. The extra light meant extra time. More hunting could happen at night. More movement was possible. More socializing extended later into the darkness. Your body is still doing this right now, you just have no idea because the city lights drown it out. Ancient humans almost certainly didn't sleep the way you do. Historian Roger Eckert spent decades going through pre-industrial texts, diaries, medical records, court documents, literature, from medieval and Renaissance Europe, and found hundreds of references to something called the first sleep and the second sleep. The pattern was consistent. People would go to sleep a few hours after sunset, Then they'd wake up somewhere around midnight, stay awake for 1 to 2 hours, then fall back asleep until dawn. That middle of the night window wasn't insomnia. It wasn't anxiety. It was just normal. People used it to pray, to reflect, to have quiet conversations with whoever was still awake nearby, sometimes to have sex, sometimes to get up and check on the fire or tend to animals. More recent research backs this up. Studies on people living without artificial light, modern subjects placed in conditions with no electric lighting, naturally fall into this two-sleep pattern within a few weeks. Their bodies do it on their own. The 8-hour block of sleep you've been told is healthy. That's not ancient. That's an industrial invention, built around factory shifts and a world that needed everyone awake and functional at the same time. For most of human history, the night had a pause built into it, and people used that pause. But here's the part of ancient nightlife that archaeology is only just starting to uncover. Because it turns out some of the most important human activities, the ones that shaped who we became as a species, happen not during those sociable fire-lit hours. They happen deep in the darkness, away from everyone else. Not everything ancient humans did at night was social. Archaeological evidence shows that some of the most significant human creative work happened specifically at night. The cave paintings at Lascaux in France, the hand stencils in Indonesia, many of these were made in caves so deep that reaching them required hours of travel through complete darkness with only torches. Going into those caves was not casual. It required preparation, dedication, and a willingness to go somewhere genuinely terrifying with only a small flame between you and absolute black. Researchers who've studied the cave sites note that the acoustic properties of the deepest chambers, where the most elaborate art is concentrated, are extraordinary. Some caves produce natural echoes and resonances that make sounds feel like they're coming from inside the walls. The people painting there may have been doing it specifically because of how the space felt in the dark, by torchlight. And there's something else that happened in those hours. Healing. Ethnographic records across dozens of cultures describe nighttime as the primary time for healing ceremonies, for shamanic practice, for whatever a community did to address the sick, the scared, the grieving. The healer worked at night. The spirits were more accessible at night. The distance between the living and the dead felt thinner when it was dark. Every major civilization, on every continent, before any contact with each other, arrived at the same conclusion. Night was when the invisible world got closer. So what did ancient humans do at night? They gathered around fires that kept them alive and built the cultures that kept them human. They watched the moon and let their bodies follow rhythms so deep they still run in you today. They slept in 2 phases with a quiet waking pause in the middle that nobody told them to take. It just happened naturally. They told stories that traveled between groups and kept entire social networks alive across distances. They danced and sang and healed each other in the dark, and some of them took a torch and walked deep into a mountain and made art that would survive 70,000 years. We think of the night as downtime, something to sleep through and get past. For ancient humans, it was the most human part of the day.